it down. We're all tied up.
They might not have passed it as far back. Taylor off balance. Takes it in with 0.4 seconds left to go.
All right, welcome back to FBA Weekly, week number 3, presented by Belly Up Sports TV. As always, I am your host, Andy Sire. My co-host, Gabriel, is out sick tonight. Hopefully, he feels better soon. But I have 2 other folks with me. You guys remember Alvin Dell from last week's show. Alvin, how we doing today?
We're doing great. Thanks for having me.
You bet, as always. And then we have Jesse with us, a newcomer to the show. Jesse, give the folks a little bit of an intro about yourself.
Well, I am the play-by-play for the FBA. Alvin there is my color analyst. We call all the big games, the games of the week together. And, you know, I do a lot of other broadcasting outside of the FBA, but over the summer, Alvin and I are together pretty much every weekend and having a good time. It was fun watching some of those videos in the intro. You had a few of our calls, which was actually very weird to hear back on the other side of it now. Every time I listen, I'm like, wait, I really sound like that?
Yeah, it's always weird hearing yourself talk on something, but shout out to Jason Cooper, part of Belly Up Sports with me, for making that intro video and our outro. But as you all know, welcome, Jesse. And as you all know, this is the show where we highlight, recap, and preview all things of the Florida Basketball Association. So if you gentlemen wouldn't mind, let's get a couple highlights from you from this past week. Talk about the games that were played, and, you know, let's just see where you guys, you know, had your focal points, and then I can chime in as we go. But, you know, Jesse, let's start with you being the play-by-play guy. Give me some highlights from this past week in the FBA.
So the Winter Park Storm beat the Brevard Bobcats. So the Brevard Bobcats are on a 2-game losing streak now. They lose 2 days in a row. The first day, Galvin and I called that game. They lost to the Florida Flight in Winter Park, and then they were at home. They had a home game. The second game they played on Sunday, and they lost 105-76 to the Winter Park Storm. The head coach of the Winter Park Storm, I actually got a chance to talk to him today. He said he kind of instilled the new offense with the team. He's a guy who preaches, okay, you play to your players' strengths, and he said he wasn't really doing that earlier on in the season. So the way he did it is, after people are coming across the half-court line, essentially, on the defensive side of the ball, they're immediately starting to go trap and only one person down low. So they're kind of running like a 1-3-1 defensive zone. And Coach Mostel told me after the game, he was like, yep, came home, you know, had a couple of beers and ate a huge bag of popcorn. I didn't want the night to end. That's actually a direct quote, is what he said to me today. So his team got a win, 105-76. They've been hunting for a win for a while, too, just because they had players kind of coming and going. When Alvin and I called their game against the Flight, they were a little bit shorthanded. They were missing some of their key ball handlers. And one of their big men, Patson Siame, as well, who went to LMU, really big 7-footer out of Africa. So, you know, when you're missing your 7-foot guys on the defensive side of the floor and your ball handlers, you got to play to your different players' strengths, and his strength is Dominic Douglas, who in this game against the Bobcats, he didn't score in the first quarter, Alvin, and he put up 47 points in their victory. Dominic Douglas, 47 points.
Not a bad night out to the office. You know, you mentioned the Flight there. I know, Alvin, we touched on them last week. They had 1 week of a really big high in that big comeback win that was fueled by Grant Gallette's clutch 3-pointer at the end of regulation. And then they kind of came back down to earth, had a 25-point loss the very next game. Now to right the ship again, what did you see from this past week that, you know, maybe you didn't predict, or maybe that was, you know, right along with what we did talk about on last week's show?
Well, this week was pretty much exactly right along the lines we preached in the last show. And really, with the Bobcats, they're struggling. They're still searching for their first win, as Jesse mentioned earlier. Their loss to the Storm, they're still 0 for. They still have a 0 goose egg in the win column, so they're trying to figure it out. And really what I saw in their game versus the Flight, they were very shorthanded at first. And really Coach Miller is trying to instill a new culture in them. And that's going to take some time to really for that to flesh out. And really, that's what we're seeing. They're struggling. They have some playmakers that can make some plays, but they're not getting it all done at the same time. One guy can pop here for a quarter or so, and another guy makes a string together a couple plays, but they're not able to get a cohesive unit and have a united front and really go and attack each and every game with that killer mentality that it takes to succeed in the FBA. But what I've seen from the Flight, on the other hand, it looked a little bit better. However, the only problem is when you're going against a team with such internal turmoil, it's hard to really judge if that's basically you're doing good or if it's because of the situation in the team that you're playing and what they're trying to figure out on the other end. So that was something that I found a little interesting. I still think they lacked a little bit on the defensive intensity side. I feel like they could do a little bit better, especially knowing a few of those guys, and especially with Grant Gullett, talking with him a little bit, knowing the type of player he is. I think he can go out and get it a little bit more. And really, I think that's what we're going to see. He played the entirety of the game yesterday, actually. He played the entirety of the game. So he's definitely putting up huge minutes. He's in great shape. But the defensive side of the ball, I want to see that intensity from the Flight going forward. And that's really the difference I see from the Flight and really the top tier teams in the Royals and the Blazers. So to wrap it all up, I think they did a good job winning against the Bobcats. However, I think the prevalent issues we've seen with them, with their turnovers and their defensive intensity is still there.
Yeah, I know something we touched on last week too, Alvin and Jesse. I would love your input on this as well. As we touched on, the top teams, and whether it's the FBA, the NBA, the CBA, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what league you're talking about when it comes to basketball. You need facilitation, you need defense, and you need consistent play. For the 48 minutes or 40 minutes if you're in the NCAA. So, did you guys see any hints that these two teams, and let's talk specifically right now about the Winter Park Storm, as you mentioned, we're trying to get them off the schneid, get them into the win column. Did you see any hints that might be coming for them, and it's something that we're working towards, or do you think that's something that might be still a struggle, come the latter part of this season?
I think they're going to be fine. I truly think the Winter Park Storm are going to be fine. Barry Mistel is a great coach. He knows how to not just get the willpower of his team, but he also is a great, just fundamental basketball coach. He runs diagnostic tests for players, and he even runs tests on coaches to see, okay, well, do you have what it takes to get to the next level? He used to be an NBA, WNBA scout. And Dominic Douglas is actually being looked at by the Germany Basketball League, Germany BBL, as well as another team in Israel, actually. So okay. Douglas is about to go somewhere. Also, the Lakeland Royals came away with another win this last weekend, and they're sending 4 guys to Europe. Like, they're going to go play in legit Europe, European leagues, and then those leagues are going to also compete in the Euro League. So a lot of good basketball is being played around the league as of late. But for the Winter Park Storm, they're definitely going to right this ship. Their defense is it took 5 new levels this weekend. So they're only going to get better with this new system. And it's a new system too. And they won by what did I say? 30 something points.
Yeah. 30. Yeah. 37, I think.
Yeah. They're going to be just fine.
Okay.
Yeah. And really, to go off that point that Jesse made about Coach Mistel, one thing that I really liked working closely with him last year, just seeing how meticulous he is, and really his preparation is just phenomenal. Like he's one of those guys that he doesn't leave a stone unturned when it comes to preparation. And you see it in his guys. His offensive system works well because he's able to get guys in their spots that they need to be because he knows his players that well. And another thing that I really like about the Storm, their athletic ability. Dom Douglas is a top tier athlete in the FBA. We talked a little bit about that, Andy, last week about premier guys in the league who stands out. Dom Douglas is one of those guys for sure. He knows how to get buckets. He could do it on both ends. He's very athletic and really knows how to manipulate offensive possessions to his benefit and the team's benefit. Another guy too that I like on Winter Park is Braylon Pickens. He's one of those guys. He's a high riser. electrifying, really knows how to get a bucket, especially in crunch time situations. But he's athletic enough to get it done on the defensive side too. So two guys that I think are a premier talent in this league. And obviously the roster is chock full of athletes. I just think if we're going to talk about two guys that could really go out and make a contention for MVP or really any of those accolades that we have in the FBA, I think those two are one of them. And Coach Mistel is knowing exactly what to do with them because he's so prepared. So I think they're going to right this ship. I think it's going to be righted for the long haul.
So let's kind of piggyback off of that, Alvin. If you're Coach Mistel and you have Dominic Douglas, you have this guy who's coming off a 47-point game. You know, the European Basketball League's looking after him, which congratulations to you, by the way. That's a phenomenal thing to have. So shout out to you, Dominic Douglas. But, if you're Coach Mistel, how do you keep this? What's the word I want to say? How do you keep this prized possession, so to speak, in performing in a way that, still puts team first and is not just focusing on individual accolades? When obviously, listen, it's a developmental league. We want to get people onto the next level. So yes, looking out for number one is important, but we still need to win. So if you're Coach Mistel, how do you balance that?
Well, he's done a great job this entire year, and really even last year. This goes way back before I think he even was in the FBA, is just understanding that there's going to be talent on a roster. Everyone's going to want to get theirs. So building an offense that allows everyone to get theirs, get their numbers in the flow of the offense, rather than just being okay, this is my turn, then it's your turn, because that can get a little dicey. So having a system in place that allows guys to be in position. Dom Douglas thrives in that mid-range area. You see him get a lot of high post actions, but then Braylon Pickens, he likes to be on that wing. He likes to get the ball in catching situations. And when he gets a couple to fall, now he can use his athletic ability to get off the dribble. Dom Douglas can get off the dribble as well. But you see a lot of their offenses started with Johnson at the top, and he does a great job of facilitating and getting everybody in their spots and then running the offense the way that it's designed to be run. So then Dom Douglas could get a spot. If he has a mismatch, he can attack that. And then when he doesn't see what he likes, he can kick it out. There's going to be Braylon there. There's offensive movement, there's down screens, and then they run out in transition. So everyone gets their numbers by feeding off of each other's strengths, and that's why they're such a scary team. I think they're going to be just fine as as we go down the stretch of the season.
My thing is, how do you keep Dominic Douglas in this system? You can't. He's leaving for Europe. So you have to design a system that can function without him, right? You need the next guy up mentality. So Coach Mistel has gone out. He's got in a bunch of guys like Nate Anthony, who's kind of like their defensive anchor, went to UCF. And then you have a guy like up top that kind of takes that shooting role. They have Devin Jackson on the team. He's their primary point guard. But then you have Cam Jackson, who's a 3-and-D kind of guy, and he's the one who can get those shots off. And then it's kind of facilitating between Devin Jackson and Braylon Pickens for those mid-range shots. But Coach Mistel has done a great job of sort of instilling the system, so that way when Douglas leaves, they're going to just be fine. They're definitely going to be fine on the defensive side of the floor. It's the offensive presence that maybe will make people wonder, okay, are they going to be all right? But they got other guys that can step up to the plate. They got Dante Finlay, who came off the bench and in 5 minutes scored 8 points in their last game. So, and he's come in and done that. Their bench is very strong too. The reserves are coming in, and as a unit coming off the bench, they're averaging 50% from two so far. So
that's incredible.
Yeah. They're going to be just fine.
All right. Well, you heard it here. So design an offense without Dom Douglas. But again, congratulations to Dom.
That whole thrive in, but also, when he says see you later, we're good to go.
Yeah. And I think if Coach Mistel and Dom work side by side to make sure that is the case, this team, like you said, will right the ship. They'll be just fine going into the latter part of the season. Let's talk about the Lakeland Royals. Jesse, you mentioned they're still sitting, near the top of the FBA here. What do these guys need to do to sustain, their success and keep performing at a high level? And I want to ask you that with a piggyback to that. So, Alvin, you'll remember last week we talked about the pride, and I mentioned how in last year's season, they didn't have anybody at the top of any of the statistical leaderboards. They had a bunch of people right in that like 10 to 15 range of everything. So they were consistent all across the board in every basketball game. So, let's talk about these Royals. What can they do to sort of supplant themselves at the top of this league going forward?
Well, the best part is that their head coach, David Thornton, his full-time job is basketball trainer. So he's got guys coming. Each of his players pretty much comes in and actually trains one-on-one with him like 3 days a week. And then on top of that, they got team practice as well. So he's got a bunch of guys that have really bought into his system. He's very crafty with the way he works with his players. When they're doing their one-on-one sessions, they're never really getting runs in. It's more just working on moves, seeing what shots that they can create on different spots of the court and finding what their guys' spots are. You always talk about Chris Paul in the NBA, like, okay, he gets to his spot. So he's kind of preached, okay, let's teach each of our guys where their spot is. And then now we're going to run down screens and everything so our guys get open in their spots, ball movement, penetrate, kick. Our guy's in our spot now has the rock in his hands, and it's easy money from there.
Okay. Alvin, any thoughts to piggyback on that?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And really what I like about Coach Thornton is that he runs the Royals very similar to how you would run a Division I basketball program. You have your main practice, which is the one where everyone gets in, they get their chemistry, you run plays, you get actual basketball 5-ons going. But then you have, like Jesse mentioned, the one-on-ones where that's the developmental aspect. And he really touched on the fact that Thornton is a developmental coach. So that's his expertise. And really, you see that in Cyrus Barnes really right now. That's kind of, I don't want to say his favorite, but that's someone who really has been putting the work in. And that's really someone that's been mentioned throughout the organization, not just from Coach Thornton, but from multiple assistants. They really hype on Cyrus Barnes and watching him play, watching the growth he's shown just from one game, seeing him do what he does and knowing that he's so young and he has the ability to take it even further. So that's what really is scary about the Royals, is that they know how to develop. And when you develop guys and you're young and the guys are hungry and they're really trying to go out there and get it, where you start is not where you're going to finish. So we haven't really seen the full monster that is the Lakeland Royals.
Can I piggyback off that real quick?
Absolutely. Take it away.
Okay, Alvin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this actually is the problematic area right now for the Flight, is they have so many players they have to develop now because of the absence of Brandon Moss, who was their superstar. He was the MVP of the FBA last year, offensive and defensive. He led in every significant statistical category. And now the Flight are also missing a guy like Elliot Glegg. So the two guys that had been like their top two, that they have the top scorer and wingman, who, I mean, Brandon Moss was like a power forward and like guard mixed together.
It was 1 through 5. That's
yes,
what Brandon Moss
every
was.
position in Elliot Glegg with their dominant ball handler, that now Coach King of the Flight has to come in and say, okay, who are going to be my guys? So far, he's gone with guys like Dickerson. Obviously, you can't take Gullett out of the game because he's just the best player. But, guys like Brian Hickey, they all have, what it takes to win games, but they haven't really figured out how to put that all together yet. So it's developing the guys in a sense where they can learn what their, I'm not going to say weaknesses, but where their challenges are in the game. And that's what the Flight really need to do. But it's on a whole team-wide basis, and everyone's got something that they're going to need to work on. So I think that's kind of the focal point for the Flight, where they're at right now, compared to where the Lakeland Royals are.
Oh man, that's perfect. That was poetry. Really, the issue with the Flight, you spelled it out, and I think if you boil it down to just a bite-sized piece, it's just rebuilding that culture that last year they had. They had that. Every game that they were in last year, it could be down 20 at half, and you just knew someone was going to make a play and they're going to go on a run. And it really felt like the 15 Warriors, if you really put it out there like that. And Brandon Moss, the thing that, you say, oh, you lost Brandon Moss, but what people don't realize, Brandon Moss could get you 50 points in a game. He could get you 11. He could get you 11 assists, 15 rebounds, and like 6 blocks with 3 steals. And those 3 steals are going to end in a tomahawk dunk that's going to like revitalize your team. Then Elliott Glegg's going to hit 3 threes in a row. So losing those 2 people at the same time now is really difficult to try and galvanize a cohesive unit. And that Coach King is doing his best. And it looks good. Obviously, we see Grant Gullett doing phenomenal. And Hickey has really stepped up to the plate. Hickey has been phenomenal. I really love the way he's stepped into this role and really making plays. And Caleb Winfrey's doing a good job of creating a niche for himself as well. But now you're going to need 3 or 4 other guys to step up and really figure out their role in the entire flight organization. And that's been the troubling part, because the teams like the Royals, they got 5, 6, 7 guys that could go in there and give you 25 if you let them. The Blazers got 5, 6 guys that could give you 25. So the top of the FBA really stacked. So the flight just trying to navigate their way through it.
Yeah, I think it's, I think those points really encompass the theme of the past couple weeks that we've talked about on this show. And Cyrus Barnes was one of the guys we talked about, Alvin, last week as one of the key contributors to where the team's going to end up, come playoff time, and how, his activity on both sides of the floor, would probably be one of the biggest factors in dictating winning or losing a basketball game. No pressure on you, Cyrus, just saying. But moving forward, Jesse, with the week ahead, looking ahead to this week here in the FBA, what can we expect to see? What are you most looking forward to, from your standpoint of, yes, being the play-by-play guy, but also just a fan of the basketball league itself?
So you have the Brevard Bobcats at the Central Florida Blazers.
Mm-hmm.
Bobcats still looking for a win.
Tough.
I don't know if I want to say it, but we know what we're all thinking. The Central Florida Blazers, top 3 in the league as well. So the Bobcats are still going to be hunting for their first win.
Yes. Nicely put.
Thank you, Alvin.
I mean, hey, to the point is how we like it, Jesse. You're already a fan.
Real. I'll sidestep or I'll like tiptoe around it. I'll keep it real.
Beating around it.
No, but I have a question based off of that,
ball.
though. I do have a question here. So for that, and I don't disagree with you, but let's have a little fun with this, okay? Let's play hypotheticals. How could they get their first win this week?
The point guard and the starting power forward for the Central Florida Blazers breaks their ankle.
Okay, we are marshaling anybody here, people. We're not doing that.
It's not a broadcaster's curse. It's a reverse.
We're not broadcasting right now.
No, I'm not a broadcaster.
No, that's fair. Alvin, what about you?
Okay, so the thing the Bobcats honestly need is, and this is one thing they had last year, they had a guy named Jace Hogan who played Division I basketball at Jacksonville University. He knew how to function within Coach MJ Miller's system, which was focal pointed on him. That's the main difference between what the Lakeland Royals are doing and what the Winter Park Storm are doing and what the Brevard Bobcats are doing is Coach Barry Mistel for the Winter Park Storm knows that he's going to lose Dominic Douglas. Coach MJ Miller didn't know that his team was going to lose Jace Hogan. He was their focal point. The offense was built around him. Mm-hmm. Whereas Coach Mistel built the offense so that Dominic Douglas, regardless whether he was there or not, could flourish in the role.
Sure.
But Jace Hogan being gone now, they've lost another few of their key players from last season. It's just going to be hard for them to get that buy-in from the 12 guys that they have on the floor if, they keep going on this slide and nothing really changes. They don't have that one it factor guy, except for maybe who's your favorite guy, Alvin? Is it
Kevin Davis?
Kevin Davis, yeah, okay, number 11.
Yeah,
Alvin's favorite player, probably in the league besides Grant Gullett, and he's 5'8", right?
Yeah,
and he's the tallest 5'8" guy I've ever seen play basketball in my life.
Insane.
Plays like a 6'5" center.
Yeah,
guard.
He's incredible.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like, and Jesse, really, you hit it. You know exactly what it is. The Blazers, what they do on the defensive end is just, I think they're just too much for the Bobcats. This is not the team that the Bobcats is going to right the ship around. Unless, like, obviously something crazy can happen, and obviously there's no absolutes in sports, and so everyone, all the Bobcats fans that are out there, I'm not saying that you have no chance. It's just 99.99%. So it's just that what we've seen from the Bobcats, they're really trying to figure it out, and they're trying to, like you mentioned, Jesse, with the buy-in, and that's something that Coach Miller has been really working to try and build a culture there, and he's trying. It's just not where the Blazers are. So the Blazers, they are 1 through 7 can go get it. They can get it on the defensive end, and we've seen that athletic ability and how they can electrify any team on transition. So what the Bobcats have to do is really, in order for them to win this game, is play relatively a perfect game. That means no turnovers, no careless turnovers, and really on the defensive end, just hustling, because the Blazers are going to make tough shots. They're going to make those big plays. You have to, if you're the Bobcats, understand they're going to make those plays, and you're going to have to go on sustained runs of your own. And however they can create that is going to be difficult, because like Jesse mentioned, there is no Jace Hogan anymore who can get you 40, who can, when the shot clock's winding down, you just pass him a grenade and let him do what he does. So they're going to have really crisp offensive sets, and then try to create an advantage in the turnover and electrify themselves in the transition. But that looks like it's going to be really hard for them to do.
So what the 2 other games I actually liked a little bit more this weekend, it's the Palm Beach Titans at the Lakeland Royals.
That'll be a good one.
And so that's a 1 versus 4 seed. And I mean, how often does a 4 seed beat the 1 seed? The answer is all the time. It happens all the time in basketball. A 4 can beat the 1 seed. It happens. So that's a better game. And then on Sunday, you have the 4 versus 5 seed. It's the Florida Flight against the Palm Beach Titans. So the Palm Beach Titans have back-to-back games this weekend. They might throw everything they have at the Lakeland Royals, which might set up the Florida Flight to come out against a little bit of a tired team. It's going to take them a little bit longer for their legs to get under them in that second game of the weekend. So I'm interested to see how the second game plays out. But 2 very, very, very close opponents there. I'm very excited about those ones.
Yeah, good weekend ahead of basketball. And really quick, guys, we got about 90 seconds here. I just want to go around the horn. Let's get some predictions. Alvin, let's start with you. Predictions on the games from this week.
I think Royals.
Just give me winners.
I think Royals, and I might have to go with the Titans against the Flight.
Jesse.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. Titans over
Blazers.
Flight. I think the Titans do drop the game against the Lakeland Royals. I think the Lakeland Royals get, let's say, or they have 1 game this weekend, and then the Blazers are going to beat the Bobcats probably by 40.
I'm going to pick the Blazers as well. I am actually going to pick the Flight to come back and win, because I think, like you said, they're going to face a tired team. Not that always makes any difference, but we have seen them be kind of the roller coaster team. I think if Galette plays up to his potential, and honestly, if they just attack a team that's going to come off a very big game in that 1 versus 4 matchup, I think the Flight can pull it out. But gentlemen, it's been another great week here on FBA Weekly. As always, I am Andy from Belly Up Sports TV. With me is Alvin Delve. Jesse, I'm not going to pronounce your last name because I don't want to butcher it. But oh, okay. Well, that's lame. Anyway, guys, thank you again for joining me. Everybody out there, tune into BellyUp.tv on Tiki Live Sports. You can get us on Apple TV, Roku, any TV streaming service. Watch this show, support it. If you have questions, you can send us an email. Otherwise, we will see you guys all next week.